All right, Rachel.
Hi.
Rachel, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I was born in Waseca, Minnesota.
Hmm.
It's a small town that even people from Minnesota have never heard of. It's really, really small.
And tell me about your childhood growing up.
My childhood growing up, divorced parents. I've lived with my mother. Pretty abnormal childhood, I would say. My mom was a partier. She liked sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and I was never allowed to call her mom just in case, there was a man around, and she didn't want me to be the daughter. So it was kind of crazy. A lot of drugs, a lot of parties. Was not the lifestyle that I would have chosen. So I kind of gravitated towards animals at a very young age, and they became my friends because I couldn't rely on or count on people. So I became an animal lover at a very young age. I had a pet guinea pig that was my best friend, and that's who I would talk to when I felt sad or
Did you have friends?
scared. I really didn't have human friends, no. No.
And you went through high school? You graduated?
No, I never went to high school. My last grade I completed was 8th grade. I started modeling in fashion at the age of 16. So I went to Tokyo, Japan, and by myself. I had an agency, of course, but it was the start of my modeling career, and I did that for over 10 years, back and forth throughout Asia.
Did that bring you to Los Angeles as well?
I moved to Los Angeles in 2000, so I did that for over 10 years in fashion, and moved to Los Angeles and discovered that there's the world of Playboy. So I did my first nude photo shoot in 2000, got hired to do several different things for Playboy over the years, Playboy Radio, Playboy TV. I was a Cinemax star. I've probably done every Cinemax show that they've ever invented. They still play them to this day. A lot of all softcore, no actual sex on film, but I was the softcore queen of the early 2000s. Yes.
And where did that lead you?
Lead me business-wise, or?
Well, I mean, your career in the sex industry went further than that.
It went way further than that. I spent a lot of time at the Playboy Mansion, going to parties and meeting all kinds of people, and met Heidi Fleiss, who's still a dear friend of mine to this day, and really changed my life. I never went to clubs. I just, if I wanted to go and meet a boyfriend or have a date, I'd meet them at the Playboy Mansion. That was my life. So I met a ton of celebrities throughout the years. And met Heidi Fleiss. She kind of changed my life forever, in a good way. Introduced me to some wonderful men that supported me and gave me money and diamonds and all those wonderful things.
Tell me what being one of Heidi Fleiss's girls was like.
Well, I met her after everything had happened, after she had already served her time in jail.
Oh, really?
And so I wasn't officially one of her girls, but I was her friend, her best friend, and she did introduce me to several men throughout the years, billionaires, millionaires, actors, and I did get paid for hanging out with them. It was never like a set price to where, like, when she was actually involved in pandering, it wasn't like that where I'd be paid by the hour. It was more of a, hey, I have this billionaire guy, he wants to hang out for the night, will you do it? And then money would be involved at the end, but it was never like a per hour type of situation or per minute. It was just...
You weren't on her roster?
Huh?
You were not on her...
I was not on that kind of roster, no. She had already served her time and she wasn't doing that anymore. Yeah. But she still had several friends and acquaintances that wanted to hang out with girls. So we had some really good times.
So you worked as an escort, basically?
Yeah, I would say, gosh, it's hard. Because it wasn't by the hour, I don't really know what that's considered. But yeah, I would say so. Yes.
How long did that go on?
Years. But most of the men that she introduced me to became, friends as well. It wasn't just random people. Everyone that I saw, I probably saw them for years. Most of them became regulars, I guess you could say. Yeah.
What have you learned about men from doing that kind of work?
They're never satisfied. They're nothing. Men with that kind of money, I find it's just nothing's ever enough. Whether it's they want to add a man to the situation, or maybe a transvestite, or there was one guy in particular who really took it to another level. He just wanted to keep trying more things, and I would make that happen for him. And he just never seemed really satisfied in the end. I always wanted more kink, more crazy, more party, more drugs, more of everything. And after a while, that can get a little tiring.
Sure. Were drugs a part of your life?
Yes, very much so. From the age of 9, actually.
Started early.
I started very early. My mom used drugs, and because I didn't know how to associate with her because she did drugs and she loved the men and stuff, I decided, instead of fighting her on it, that I would just, if you can't beat them, join them. So I remember I did my first line of cocaine with my mother when I was 9 years old, and that never stopped. It probably 20, 30 years. And she would say that we couldn't even be around the room, in the same room together, without having to get high first. So that was the relationship that we had. And but I couldn't be around her unless I was on drugs. I just didn't understand this woman, and how could she be my mother? But the drugs helped that. And that was our relationship, drugs and men.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And do you have children, or were you ever married?
I was married twice, just for situational purposes, both for green cards. I met guys in my travels that wanted to move to America. My first husband was the local cocaine dealer in Hollywood. So I married him. He needed his green card. And then my second husband, pretty much the same situation. He just wanted to stay in America, and I'm like, well, why not? It's easier to get married than divorced, I found. But yeah, never had any children of my own. Animals were always my children, so I chose them over human children.
How would you look back at those experiences of being an escort and dating the higher level of client? What was how did it affect you emotionally, I guess is my question.
I never felt that I was doing anything bad or wrong. It was two adults agreeing on
a transaction.
There were certain people that, God bless their souls, they're not here anymore, that really took the party to another level and did lose their lives over it. And that's sad to hear about, years later, that the party never ended for them. For me, it did. I had to get out of it because I didn't want to die, and I didn't want that to be the end of me, dying of a drug overdose, or dying of murder, or getting raped, or any of that. I didn't want that. And the people that I hung out with were at that level of, it got scary.
Even at that level?
Unbelievable situations and scenarios, and I just one day decided it's not worth it. I told my main client guy that I no longer want to do this anymore. I can't do this. Your behavior and the things that you're seeking and you desire and that you're trying to get me to be a part of, it's dangerous. At this point, you're going to die. And he ended up a couple years ago jumping from, I think it was like the 36th floor of his condominium and killing himself.
Really?
Because the party never stopped. for him. But it was no longer a party. It got to where he was a billionaire, and then he became just a junkie. And I got thankfully I had the smarts because of growing up around drugs, kind of knowing when it was time to just exit and just say it's not worth the money, it's not worth hanging out with whomever. It was time to go, and I think that saved my life in many circumstances, in many different situations. That timing. I just always knew when it was just time to go. To
leave the party.
Yeah.
Do you look back at those times and have pleasant memories of them, or?
I do have pleasant memories, but a lot of sadness for the ones that didn't make it out.
That lifestyle eats people up, doesn't it?
It eats people up, and to lose your life over it, and to hurt people and use people and abuse people just because you need to be satisfied in a certain way. It's really kind of sick, When is it ever enough?
Yeah.
And when is it time to stop? And who will you not hurt to get what you want? It's a very selfish, self-indulging lifestyle, and I didn't want that. I had bigger dreams and something I loved more than myself, which was animals.
Yeah, that reinforced your love for animals, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you see men differently because of that experience?
I do. Obviously I'm single, still single. I just turned 50, and I have, a lot of trust issues. I know that, especially in a city like Los Angeles, there's always the next best thing. And when you have that many options, most people think, why not? I know if I lived in Minnesota, if I would have stayed there, I would have been married after high school.
Your life would have looked
my life would have been different.
Very
but
different.
When you have options, most people say, why not? And, nothing's really ever satisfying or good enough for some people, no matter what the price.
Do you have regrets about getting into it?
No, I don't. I don't regret. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel, because I never hurt anybody. I never used anyone. I never did anything that didn't feel okay to me.
You were just there for a good time.
I was just there for a good time and the money. Like I said, when things got bad and things got uncomfortable and things got a little freakier than I wanted to be, then I would leave. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to stick around and participate in some of the things that were going on. It's just not my style.
What's the wildest thing you saw?
Wildest, there's so many. Just drugs and sex and hookers. Like, these men that I knew, a woman was just not enough anymore. So after a while with the drugs, they wanted to incorporate trannies, for instance. So I'd go online and try and find a tranny that would come over to the house. And then it got to the point where we were just cruising the streets trying to find streetwalkers and getting drugs from the street. It wasn't where the drugs were being delivered to our house anymore. We were just hanging out in a mansion. It got to points where we're on the streets and we're in danger and guns are being held to our heads. And that's when I think the fun ends and it becomes a problem.
A little too dangerous.
Too dangerous, yes.
What got you out of that line of work?
The last day that I saw my friend, the one that jumped out of the window of his apartment building, I was terrified. The drugs had taken over. He went from not doing drugs to partaking sometimes. Then he went to shooting up crystal meth. Then he went to, the streets. And this man had everything. He was a billionaire. He had the best life. And I was so terrified because no one wants to go down alone. They say misery loves company. And I would have went probably with him. And I didn't want that. I chose to live. And walking away was hard because these people did become my friends, and they were people I cared about. But sometimes you just have to choose yourself and love something greater than yourself to get out of bad situations. And like I said, for me, it was always the animals. I wanted to open my own nonprofit. I wanted to save the animals of the world, and that's what I did. I chose a greater cause than myself and my partying ways and the money. I chose what I loved more than myself.
What did you start?
I started a 501c3 nonprofit. It's an animal rescue. It was called Lucky Puppy, and we would save dogs from the city shelters, and find them forever homes. So I created the first humane pet store, I think probably in the world. It was on Ventura Boulevard, and we sold everything that you would need to when you would adopt a dog. Beds, food. Whatever the dog might need, and then we would rescue the dogs from the shelter, take them to the vet at a grooming salon upstairs. They would get groomed and look all fancy, and they would just all be in my store in the window, and people would walk by and come in and adopt a dog from us that normally would have been euthanized. So in 3 years of having that humane pet store, we found homes for over 1,600 dogs that would have been dead otherwise. And because of the location, I think, and the it was fun. It was like Disneyland in there. It was great. We had Girl Scouts volunteering, and it was always my passion because animals, like I said, were my best friends my whole life. Tom Cruise adopted dogs for me. You name it, the celebrity had been in my store. Ellen DeGeneres. It was a dream. It was, like I said, it was like Disneyland for rescue dogs. It was probably the happiest times of my life.
Are you still doing it today?
No, I lost everything after my brother was murdered. I have a brother. I did have a brother, and when you rescue animals, most rescues don't think of like a life plan. Like, for instance, what if you rescue a dog from the shelter? You don't know their behavior. You don't know what ailments they may have. And I realized I couldn't have every dog in a humane pet store. What if they bit somebody or whatever? So I got a ranch in Santa Clarita for the dogs that weren't really adoptable at the time, or maybe never would be adoptable. I wanted a life plan for them, because once I adopted a dog or rescued a dog, they're mine for life. I would never return them to the shelter because they were sick or whatever. So I got a ranch, and that's where the dogs that could be in the store would go to. I hired a man to kind of look over the ranch. I put him on the lease. He wasn't doing his duties. He wasn't caring for the dogs. Just about 2 months later, so I asked my brother if he would move to my Lucky Puppy Ranch and just kind of oversee and make sure that he was doing what he was supposed to do. 2 weeks later, that man murdered my brother. And after that, the collateral damages, as you can imagine, were tremendous. I lost everything. I lost my brother. I lost my animal rescue. I got sued by the city of Los Angeles for animal abuse. They charged me with animal abuse. I had to go to trial for that. I lost everything. So no, I don't have Lucky Puppy anymore. But it was good while it lasted.
And losing a brother, especially in that way, has a lot of far-reaching effects, doesn't it?
It does. It was, the guilt, of course, that I felt for asking him to help me and move up there in the first place. It was, he would have never been there if I hadn't asked for him to do it. He would have done anything for me. No questions asked, always. I didn't know that the man that I had hired to look over the animals was even capable of something like that, obviously. He was a former actor. He was a actor that played the Red Power Ranger in the TV show for kids. I guess kids watch it. Everyone watches it. He did a Power Rangers movie. He played the Red Power Ranger in the movies. And I didn't know any of this at the time, but I quickly learned that he killed my brother when TMZ showed up at the ranch. And I'm like, oh, so he was an actor. And he was his Red Power. I didn't know any of this. This was all kept a secret from me. But he took a samurai sword and stabbed my brother 10 times with the sword and killed him. For what reason, I don't know. So. Did
your brother do something to instigate that?
No, nothing that I know of. I just know that the man, his name is Ricardo Medina Jr., he didn't want my brother there. And we were planning on kicking him out on February 1st. We made a plan with the landlord that we would all be evicted because we didn't want him to know that. We didn't want him to get mad and say, well, why am I being kicked out, not them? So he was going to evict us all and then get rid of Ricardo February 1st, and then he would re-sign the lease with me and my brother. And he murdered my brother January 31st, one day before he was going to be evicted. In court, they said that there was an altercation, that they got into a fist fight, but the magnitude and the monster, I don't even know how to describe it. The manner in which he took my brother's life has destroyed my life. He didn't shoot him. He didn't beat him up. He didn't choke him out. To stab someone, it's very, very personal and very, it was overkill. You know, he didn't have to kill him in such a horrible fashion, and the guilt and the everything that comes with it, losing my dream, my animals because of collateral damage from what he had done. It's just, I don't know how to move. I've moved on, but I don't know if I've moved forward. I'm kind of stuck in grief, maybe.
Sure.
And guilt, and yeah.
What year was this?
2015.
2015, so not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
So he's still in prison?
No. He was released a couple years ago. He served about 3 years.
3 years for murder?
For murder, yes. There was never a trial. He pled out, and instead of having to go through a murder trial, he made a deal with the district attorney that he would plead guilty to a lesser charge, and they just sentenced him to 4 years for a brutal murder. So that was tough, because when he had gotten arrested, of course, the night of the murder, and was released 3 days later. And the first 3 days, I didn't speak to the media. Every TV station, every news, they were following me, trying to get me to talk, and I never said a word until I got a call that he was being released. And my brain just went from victim to monster. There was nothing I wouldn't do to make sure that this man paid the price for what he had done to my brother. So I spent a year doing everything and anything I had to do to collect the evidence and to force the people that should have been doing their jobs to do their jobs. And almost a year to the day after his death, he was finally rearrested because of me solving my own brother's murder, basically, which no one should have to solve their own brother's murder, but I had no choice. So. And that's what I did for a year. And then they rearrested him and charged him.
This kind of put your life into a tailspin, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I truly believed that, I know it sounds silly now I find it silly to say, but, they say God only gives you what you can handle. But that is just above and beyond. I couldn't figure out, I'm the kind of person that won't step on the cracks. I don't want anyone in my family to get hurt. I'm very cautious and very loving and very caring, and I try not to do bad things to people. So I couldn't figure out why in the world did this happen. There was no reason. And I didn't do anything to deserve it. And could I handle it? Absolutely not. So my go-to was, I truly believe that God hates me. That was my thing that I would say, is God, he fucking hates me. That's the only thing in my mind that sounded correct at the time. And, I put 100% of my time, 100% of my effort into fighting him and befriending police officers and screwing police officers and doing whatever I had to do to get information and to make them do the right thing. And I did some dirty, nasty things that I never thought I would do just to make sure that justice was served.
You had to have sex with this police officer?
I absolutely did, yes.
To do what?
Just for information. I wanted information. I wanted to know what was going on with the case because, everything's kept between themselves. And I was the one collecting evidence. I was the one that was talking to the media. I was the one that was getting the signs and figuring out why the door wasn't really busted down. And I just happened to run into a sheriff at a bar. And he's like, yeah, of course I know your case. I'm Lieutenant so-and-so. I'm like, okay, well, if he knows anything, I'm going to make sure he tells it to me. And so I took him home and got a little information, not enough that put him in prison at the time, but I just wanted it to cause a ruckus and let people know, anyone and everyone, know that it shouldn't have gone down the way it did, and that my brother did not deserve this, nor was he the aggressor, and that this man needed to be in jail. And it worked.
Do you feel like you were the one who solved that case?
Absolutely. Yeah. I do. They wouldn't have done anything. They were done with it.
But it's got to be frustrating that only 3 years was served.
It hurts my soul. And, and the day he was released, I made that life decision to continue to go after him. I was going to be there with, I was even thinking maybe I'll hire a bunch of motorcycle gang extras from SAG and just be outside of the jail and scare the crap out of him when he gets out. That was my focus, was just making sure that this man never forgets what he had done. And instead I just laid in the grass in my backyard and just cried and cried and cried and cried. And that's the day I chose myself and I chose to live. And I can't keep fighting this monster who has no soul and has no regret. So what is that going to do for me? Continuously trying to ruin his life even more than it already is. And you have to believe at some point in karma. And everyone's like, don't worry, he'll get his when he, karma will get him. And you have to kind of just believe that. Otherwise, what do you do? So I try to believe that karma will take care of him one day, and I just chose to start living my life again. So then that's when I knew that God really didn't hate me, that I was just saying that, and that my brother is in a better place, and that he was a kind person and a soulful person and an extremely shy person. I'm shy, but he was extremely shy, and I just believe that he was not meant to be here. But I'm haunted. I have severe PTSD. I have night terrors. I don't even have to go to bed thinking about what had happened to my brother. It just comes in my dreams. So that's something that I'm trying to learn to cope with. I have sleep paralysis, and that just comes whenever it feels like it. So the manner in which he took his life haunts me even when I'm not thinking about it, because it was so gruesome and unnecessary. He cut all my brother's fingertips off because my brother was trying to stop him from stabbing him
with a
samurai sword, 3-foot samurai sword. So that's hard to, and all I've ever wanted to do is take care of animals and love people, and
it turns into this.
And it turns into this, and it's I don't know the reason. And I felt like I was definitely like an alien on this planet. Like I didn't belong here. I tried to join support groups and actually felt like jealousy over other people whose child had been shot. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I jealous? Because I found in my mind, I think that's more humane way to die than the way my brother was killed. He was chopped up. He was disemboweled. It was just, you don't ever hear of anyone killing someone like that, So for a long time, I felt so alone on this planet, thinking that, oh, I wish my brother would have just been shot. You know, I had that attitude. And then one day I just thought, you know what, pain is pain and loss is loss. And it all feels the same no matter how whatever the situation is, it still feels the same for everybody, I think, and I hope. So I don't think my pain is any less painful than someone that's lost their dog or stubbed their toe. It's still painful. And that's what I try and tell myself, that it's all the same. We're all human, and we feel those things. And that's helped me get by, because thinking of that my situation is so much different than someone being shot or stubbing their toe makes me alienate myself from the world. And I did that for so many years. And I don't want to do that anymore.
Have you had any close human friends in your life?
I've had a couple. I have my bestie Sandra. She was my brother's girlfriend. So I'm kind of stuck to her like glue, because, you know, we've been through it together. But
animals are your thing.
Animals are my thing. You know, I trust everybody the same. That's my problem. I would give a homeless person or a billionaire the same attention and the same chance. And I don't have that filter where I think that people can be bad. And I learned the hard way that people can be very horrible. And it's just, it doesn't resonate in I'm an empath. I don't understand how that's even a thing. How can you hate, and how can you be cruel? And it's not in my chemical makeup to have that kind of feeling. But that man that killed my brother, it taught me how to feel hate for the first time, and taught me, like, people are like, you just need to forgive him and just let it go. And I will not. You know, 'cause he's not a human to me. I will forgive a human being, but to me, he's a monster, and always will be. And that's why I think my feelings of hate are warranted for him.
Rachel, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in all of this?
In all this?
In your colorful life?
Colorful life. To always just stay true to who you are, and don't let outside factors or people's opinions or what they do change who you are. Change who you are. I've been through hell and back, and been with the richest and the poorest and the everything, but I'm still that same little girl that loves guinea pigs.
From
at
Minnesota.
the end of the day. Yeah. You know, and that'll never change. And all the bad stuff has not changed who I am, nor will I ever let it. Maybe it's naive, I don't know, but I'm still the same person.
That's great. All right, Rachel, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you.
I hope things get better for you from here.
Thank you.
Thank you.